Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for our Fool's Gold review, and this time we've got the future state getting the litmus test in regards to Fool's Gold. So starting off with today, with this one, we have The Flash and Wonder Woman. So let's get started. As you can see here, this is how I do my system rating and how much I pay for my comic, and I also point out how much it's worth. So starting off with The Flash, issue 1 of the future state. Things that are brought up within this story are, number 1, Earth -3, the Castle of Checkmate and their headquarters. We've also got Japan and Barry's Speed Lab. And the cast consists of the Speed Force family members, Checkmate, the Calculator, Famine, and a possessed Wally West, who is possessed by Famine. I must admit, this story was very interesting. Rating the cover in relation to the story, it gets a 6 out of 10. And how much do I think it's worth? $1.25. Moving into the internal art, this art was actually quite consistent in quite a number of places, and I really enjoyed this. This is at the beginning. I'll show you one towards the end. It was really nice and I enjoyed the style of it, and it'll be interesting to see what the next issue brings. For the art, it too got a 7 out of 10, but for how much I thought it was worth, $1.30. Now, quickly moving on to the story. Of course, I brought up the locations before that are addressing this thing. We are told, of course, this does take place after the death metal events. And I'm also wondering if a lot of these future state titles are actually taking place in regards to the else world's Earths. So, not the main DC comic universe, but the else world's Earth. And that's why I'm starting with The Flash here. Moving to the next, let's go on to Wonder Woman. As we go on to Wonder Woman, I really enjoyed the cover here. It did actually help the story. I'll give it that. It really helped with the story, and it matched with something that happened inside the story. So for the cover rating, it got a 7.5 out of 10, so it was worth $1.50. Or how much I think it was worth? $1.50. The art internally by Joelle Jones. Was it Joelle Jones? It might have been Ballet. Let's move into it. Starting off with something that happens towards the beginning of the book. And of course, I really like what happens after this situation. As to when she learns, well, maybe she didn't quite kill the Hydra. It was really good. It was nice to see that when this character came in, they had actually made a mistake. Aggressive, but had made a mistake. Very nice with that being brought across. Now, moving into the art around the middle of the book, I really enjoyed this too, but I will also point out something that shouldn't actually be here. especially if this is meant to be a mix between Greek gods and basically South American Amazonian gods. I'll address that when I reach the story. But for the art inside, I really enjoyed it. I liked what they gave. And that too was a 7.5 out of 10. To which I also thought it was worth $1.50. Now to move on to the story. Now, moving on to the story, we've got Yara Flor, her Pegasus, Terry, no, not Terry, Jerry, and Kaiporo, who seems to be a sprite of the underworld. And it was really nice seeing that happen within the story. Moving into the locations, of course, we've got the deep Amazon in South America. And of course, we have the introduction of the underworld, plus her experience of the underworld. Now, I can move on to my criticism, to which my criticism is, why is the underworld made out to be Gehenna, especially for something connected to the Greek gods and also in part the Brazilian South American Amazon gods? It doesn't match in regards to looking at it at a historical standpoint. It's actually incorrect. I have to point that out. It is actually incorrect, and it didn't really work well with the story. It would have worked well if you had Hades or Tartarus, because she's meant to have a connection to Wonder Woman, who is from Themyscira, which is also a part of Greece. Alright, those two would have been perfect to use for this, but it wasn't put in there. You could have used some of the South American things, maybe something in relation to Quetzalcoatl, or even some of the Mayan or Aztec gods. No, none of that was there either, and it would have helped improve the story. And this is why the story also lost points. I was hoping of giving the story a 7, maybe even a 7.5, because it felt that fun. But because of the neglect of paying attention to basically the spiritual myths and beliefs around these areas, it does lack in this. To which I gave the story a 5 out of 10, to which I think the story is worth about $1. Until then, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Until then, let's keep it colourful. Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29, back again for another Fool's Gold review of the Future State titles. And here we go in these titles that we are going to be covering Harley Quinn and Swamp Thing, issue 1. As you can see on the side here of how I do my rating and how much I think the story is worth, there is the currency conversion as to what I pay for my local comic store. So let's get started to the beginning of the review, starting off with Harley Quinn. Now, moving into the cover of Harley Quinn, it didn't really match up a lot in regards to what happened inside art-wise, and in this it really scored quite low. It got 6 out of 10. To which I think the cover is worth about $1.25. So let's move into the internal art. Now, this internal art, I totally agree. This would probably work well in regards to, say, an animated series or an animated film, as I've heard some people mention, and I do agree with it. I like the way how it's set out. The artist definitely has some talent here, and I do enjoy this. Now, this is towards the beginning of the story. Let's move to something around mid to end. As you can see, it does actually keep to some form of consistency within the story, and I really like the art. And that's why I gave the art in this a 7.5 out of 10, but I believe for what it's worth, it's about $1.50 Australian. Now to move on to the story. Now, with this story, we've got Harley Quinn, Crane, who is Scarecrow, we've got Roman, who is Black Mask, and Professor Pig, to which there are some appearances. And in the story, we've got Harley Quinn being asked to be a snitch to help catch some criminals for the magistrate. It did, but didn't quite work. And the story could have been a little bit more stronger. Is she actually giving him the locations so she can maybe get in good on the magistrate and then maybe go full villain on the magistrate? We just don't know right now. And we still don't have a lot of details as to who the magistrate is. Right, we've got an understanding of some of the magistrate system. Some of the locations that we go to is the St. Evangeline Orphanage. And of course, this beginning one, it's not very clear in regards to the location as to where Harley is. It gives off the impression that it might be Arkham Asylum, but because the writer did not point out where Harley actually was, it makes it difficult to determine. And that's another place where it actually lost points. The story is very mediocre. And this is why it scores a 5 out of 10, to which I think the story is worth $1. Time to move on to Swamp Thing. As we begin to move on to Swamp Thing, this cover I found really interesting, and this cover is, the way it's done is also connected to something that happens within the story, to which I believe the cover is worth, in rating, a 6 out of 10. How much do I think, rating wise, or how much do I think it's worth? About $1.25. So let's move into the internal art, as it came off giving off a very dark feeling, like throughout the whole story. Now, don't get me wrong, there was definitely some pretty art in here, and I liked what was done with the characters, including someone who we meet in this panel. Of course, we've got this Swamp Thing's daughter, and he actually tells a bit of a story to it, and I really like that in story. And that will be addressed later. So let's move to art around the mid section. Now, with what the artist has done here, it comes off as very clever, and I like what they've done. It's using parts of the human anatomy and sort of like, in a way, connecting it to the green. And I thought that was really clever on the artist's job, but in some places it didn't quite help the story. To to which I will stop there and now move on into the rating for the art. The rating for the art, I also gave it a 6. How much do I think the story's worth? $1.25. Now, how much do I think the art is? $1.25. Moving on to the story. Some of the places that we see within the story. One looked to be New York. And of course, north Eureka. Or north of Eureka at Nunavut. A little bit difficult to say, but I got what the artist was trying to do. It was nice to see the main character move out of where they were, and it was nice in the world building that they brought here. Now with the cast, we've got Swamp Thing, Indigo, who was a bit of a pain in the ass to him and always wanting to bring up the issue of truth, and Swamp Thing didn't quite want didn't want to listen to what he had to say as what he sort of saw as his truth. We of course had Heather and a character by the name of Venom, which I found very interesting. And he was someone who worked for Star Fortress, spelled S full stop T full stop A full stop R full stop Fortress. And it makes one wonder, what is his connection to like some of the revolutionary tactics that have happened in this world? Because that's the impression the story gave, that maybe he was a type of revolutionary trying to seek some peace during a war that took place. I think he'd also be good for a type of character to put in like an old war type comic. That's the impression I got from the character, and I'm wondering if that's something that the writer was trying to get across. This is where the story got a 7 out of 10, to which I thought the story was worth $1.50. So a big thanks to all my subscribers. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Until then, let's keep it colourful. Shalom and good day all. This is Tehillim29 back again for another Fool's Gold review, and this time we are going to be reviewing from the future state Superman of Metropolis and the next Batman. And as you can see here, this is how my rating system works. I'll also point out how much I believe the story is worth. As you can see there is the currency conversion in regards to how much the comic converts to in Australian dollars, and that plays a part in how much I think the story is worth. So let's get started on to the first one, being Superman of Metropolis. Alright, going by the cover here, is this something that we see in the story? You bet it bloody is, but I'll say one thing, if this story, or if this cover wasn't here, the rating for it would actually be lower, and that plays a part into how much I think the story is worth, or the first story is worth, as well as the art. So, moving on to the art, let's check it out. Now, there's 3 stories in regards, there's actually 3 stories in this. Let's move on to the first one. Now, this is some of the art within the first story, and this is pretty much consistent throughout the story, and I did enjoy the art. Now, I'll give the rating for both the cover and the art after I cover this, of course, and I'll show you a little bit towards the end. Now, this art was really nice, and I enjoyed what happened here. It's not like the best of stories, but it's an interesting story. Now, for the cover, I gave it a rating of 7 out of 10, to which I believe it was worth about $1.50. It would have been less if this wasn't the actual cover in relation to the story. Now, moving to the art, I too also gave it a 7 out of 10, and I believe it was worth about $1.50. In regards to the story, it's interesting. It's a bit mediocre in parts. It wasn't very strong, but let's move on to what was happening here. Who were some of the cast members? Of course, there was John Samuel Kent, Superboy, and of course, Kara, and including brain cells. Now, one thing that I sort of liked that was happening here, it almost felt like the character was the character of brain cells is sort of like the mastermind to what's happening here. And the thing is, John's seeing one side of the story, Kara's seeing the other, but in the process she has allowed herself to be possessed and manipulated by brain cells. And I thought that was actually very clever story-wise. Even though it's not strong in story, it might improve in the next issue. And some of the key places that we got to see here was, or the key locations that we got to see here were Metropolis, of course, before it was bottled up, and the Fortress of Solitude, to which it should have been pointed out within the story. Now, moving into the second story. This second story, I really enjoyed. It was a story around Shiloh Norman, who is the prodigy of Mr. Miracle, scot-free. We actually got to see quite a few areas around Metropolis, and I really enjoyed that. Now, I'll just pause it here so I can show you some of the images in regards to the art. Now, for those who don't know, this is actually taking place within the bottled city of Metropolis, and here we have Shiloh Norman working on escaping. This is fucking brilliant. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to how this story will finish. Like, I'm already hyped. Time to move on to the third story. Before I move on to the third story, I still need to give the rating for the art. To which the art got the rating of 8 out of 10. Now, this is actually one of the highest art ratings in the present Fool's Gold Future State. The story got a 7.5. The total overall of being $3.50, to which $2 was given to the art and $1.50 was given towards the story. Time to move on to the third story. Now, as we move on to the third story, we've got the character of the Guardian here. And a lot of this takes place in quite a number of places within Metropolis, and I really like the world building done in this. Now, just before I move into what I thought for the art and the story, the key character here is Guardian, and I might not know much about the character, but I do like what was done here with the character. We got to visit quite a number of places such as Hell's Gate, Suicide, Slum, and quite a number of other places. I enjoyed what was shown here. Even the art helped make up for it in the story too. So, for the art rating, I gave it a 7 out of 10, and I also thought it was worth $1.50. For the story, it too got a 7 out of 10, and I also thought it was worth $1.50. So the overall amount to which this got total wise was $10.50 Australian, and it made up more than half of the profits in regards to what I was reading story wise. Time to move to the next comic. Now, as we begin moving into the next Batman, starting off with the cover, in relation to the story, did it actually match anything within the story? I'm sad to say that this got a bit of a no for me, the next Batman, especially cover-wise. And cover-wise, it's a 4 out of 10 from me. Right, it looks amazing, but in regards to the story, not so amazing. So let's move into the internal art for the first story. And by the way, that's 90 cents Australian for the cover. Let's move into the art. Now, in regards to the art, as you can see, there seems to be quite a few mixed palettes, as they're trying to sort of help give the impression of like two different areas within Gotham, and also in regards to the family of Lucius Fox. And of course, we see here Tim Fox, to which he gets his appearance in this. He feels a little bit more like, what's the word I'm looking for? A character that has been shoved in last minute just to try to make a point. No hate against the Lucius Fox family. I think there are some good characters that they have in here, and I do like Luke Fox as Batwing, and it's nice to have someone who's sort of like connected to the Wayne Enterprises company that also can play a part in upgrading Batman's gear, including their own. The art felt pretty consistent in it, but it would have been nice to have some brighten it up a little bit more. So for the art rating for the story, it got a 7 out of 10, but this time I believed it was worth $1.25 Australian. Moving on to the story, of course, the cast of characters being the Banes or the Banistas or whatever the fuck they were meant to be called. Terrible idea. It didn't really work, especially in relation to what they're trying to do with the Magistrate. It just doesn't really fit in any way. It feels like a useless story. It does not feel like it fits in the universe. That's why it sort of feels like this future state might actually be the many of the infinite Earths of the Elseworlds, of the second Earth that was discovered in Dark Knight's death metal. Moving into locations, it was mainly in Gotham, but we didn't get like actual locations, and that's where a lot of this story failed. to which the story is getting a 4 out of 10, and I think it's worth about 90 cents. Total overall, $3.05. Moving into the second story, which is The Outsiders. As we look through here, in regards to The Outsiders, we've got the characters of Katana and Duke Thomas here, who is Signal. In show, the story didn't feel super enjoyable, even with the art. Nothing wrong with the artist per se, but I think they could really sharpen up their detail with characters such as Katana and even Duke Thomas. And as we move into the story a little bit more before moving into parts of the story, such as the cast of characters and locations, a lot of this happens on the inner parts of Gotham as well as outside of Gotham. So did it feel like the artist really brought that across in the story? Not really at all. In that the story got a 5 out of 10, I believe, or in that the story and the art both got 5 out of 10, to which both are worth $1. And it gives us an overall total of $2 just for this story alone. Moving into the third story. As we move into the third story, and starting off with the art, I really enjoyed the art in this story, as well as the story itself. It was really nice how it came across. Now, the story and the art felt consistent. I also liked the idea within the story, we've got the Arkham Knight, plus Two-Face, Croc, a couple of others. Of course, we've got the location of Wayne Manor, to which we also see within the story. I liked what the artist did with that. It felt very enjoyable. And one thing as well that I sort of like with this, it felt like with the character of the Arkham Knight, which is Astrid Arkham, which was introduced to us by Peter J. Tomasi, who was on Detective Comics. And one thing I really liked what Peter J. Tomasi did in regards to the Detective Comics Arkham Knight, I really liked that this character was female. Not male, but female. I thought it was a brilliant idea, where people are sort of like used to the Arkham Knight video game, where the Arkham Knight is actually a male character. I felt like this actually suited the DC universe of the Arkham Knight actually being a female character. It had a lot going for it, and it's also good to see that she feels threatened by the appearance of the magistrate, which is in the city, and with it she's organized a team to which it has basically become the Arkham Knights to go up against the magistrate. It's sort of like, don't cross our territory. So you've got the fight for territory on Gotham soil. And it was really good to see that this character, and you could see it within the storytelling, that this character did actually feel threatened by the magistrate. Even though we still have not seen the magistrate yet, I enjoy what has been done here. And the threat level is definitely shown really well here in regards to the Arkham Knights. So, moving on to the total for the art. I gave it a 7 out of 10, to which I believe it was worth $1.50. For the story, 7 out of 10, to which I believe it was worth $1.50. It was nice to see the locations as well as the cast of characters. I would probably enjoy if DC did maybe a few more stories around Astra Arkham, maybe post Magistrate, or did some more stories post Magistrate with Astra Arkham of the Arkham Knights. Like, will she actually leave Arkham? Will she like go outside of Gotham City to maybe seek more training? Maybe even find more people to basically make knights of her own Arkham Knight Asylum round table. Like, find villains that will be a bigger threat to Batman. This would be great to see. Well, that's all for this review. Until then, don't forget that if you enjoyed watching this, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And as you can see, I'm on the road to 200 subscribers. If you know anyone who might want to enjoy the channel, even subscribe to the channel, please share it with them. Until then, let's keep it colourful. And if you have now reached the end of this video, you are awesome.